exhausted I was in Japan. I was very depressed. I stopped working out. I gained weight. It was terrible. And the worst part is, the reason that it is this shitty, the reason that this job sucks this much, is because there is a line out the door of people like me who are just so excited about the idea of teaching in Japan that they will ignore all of this. They will ignore the fact that their wages have been cut over and over again. They will ignore the fact that you know, so many people complain about this line of work, and they are just so happy that the opportunity to go to Japan, and these companies take advantage of that.
Hello there, YouTube. It's Victor, give me a break, man. Give me a flake, man. The king of the morons. I'm not gonna impale my face into the camera today. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful night. I'm using the Panasonic Lumix GH4 with a beautiful Olympus lens, and I'm going to talk to you tonight about Ryan Boundless's sponsored video. I'm not going to talk too much about him because there's not really much to talk about with Ryan. It's just the same old. He's a one-trick pony.
Japan is boring. No, Japan is bad. Japan is not a good place for you. Don't come to Japan.
And I gotta say thank you, because I agree, you shouldn't come to Japan, because if you all come to Japan, my services as an English teacher, which is exactly what he does, will, you know, by the value, my worth as a potential money-making machine will go down. So I do encourage you all not to come to Japan. But if you insist, regardless of what I say, then I'm going to ask you to please learn the language a little bit, because you'll have a much better time. You might as well have a good time if you're going to be here, right? And isn't this lovely? I wanted to film this tonight in the rain. And the way you can learn the language is go to iTalki.com. iTalki.com is a great website where you can pick a Japanese teacher, or any language you want, actually. You can pick any kind of language you want. Learn Spanish, German, French, support your Parisian friends, right? Anyway, whatever you want to learn, you can learn quite easily. And if you're going to come over here, and try to hit on girls like this guy's hit on girls, but of course he's doing it because he can speak the language, and you have no chance if you can't speak the language. So before you get all your ducks in a row, get some Japanese under your belt by going to italki.com. It's very easy to use. Pick a teacher, pick a language, pick a teacher, schedule a class, pay them whatever they demand or ask you for. It's pretty affordable, and the teachers are professional. There are professional teachers there, many professional teachers. So check it out. Anyway, and they sponsor our videos. So they are friends of the channel, and they help us make quality videos. Like the cool video that you're seeing tonight, I'm able to make thanks to italki.com. Partially, and because I'm really interested in making this video. So actually I wasn't going to give, let's go back to the topic. I was not going to give Ryan Boundless any more attention, because I honestly think there's not much else to say there. I mean, you got to think about the guy's situation, which is he's been here for 10 years and he keeps putting the place down. So either he's lying or he's a masochist. I did watch the beginning of his video, and I watched a little bit of the other guy's video. I think his name is Barry, which is what I will be addressing the rest of the video when I get back to my man cave. I'll sit down there and I'll address that video, which is really what needs to be addressed. And I haven't watched it all. I watched part of it. But think about Ryan Boundless's claims. For number one, anyone who wants to come to Japan is automatically weeaboo, which is just a strange thing to say. Well, it's a strange thing to classify people as. I would imagine he would fit that description, I suppose, by his own definition. I'm not really sure these days what a weeaboo is anymore, because he's just created a whole different definition for it. Anyone who thinks Japan is a good place to live, I suppose. But let's just put that aside and just mention, let's mention one thing. His claims that Japan is a shitty place to live. If that is so, why is he still here? He's been here for 10 years, right? Now, I will get to Barry's video in a few minutes, so let's put that aside. But think about that for a minute. If it's such a bad place, what is he doing here? He also claims that you need a strong personal connection or deep connection with someone to survive here. And I actually would disagree. I think, sorry, I was distracted by the lovely females. I would say that what you need here is a strong sense of who you are, which takes time for everybody, you know. And I'll even say that it took me time, and I developed that while I was here. I mean, I had some inkling of who I was, and I was capable of traveling by myself anyway, you know. Look at that. I've been traveling by myself for a long time, so maybe if you do intend to come here, maybe travel a little bit by yourself, or do things that are independent by yourself first, before you attempt, should I go down there? Before you attempt to take on Japan. See, I spent about a year and a half just backpacking across Central and South America, but that's very different from learning to live in a place, because you don't mind if you can't make strong connections, and actually you make a lot of friends when you're backpacking and stuff, but it's different when you're sitting, you're doing a 9-to-5 kind of job, and you're sitting at home, and you are not out having fun all the time, right? Because if you're backpacking, going to bars every night, or backpacking, or, you know, enjoying the sights, you're not lonely. You know, you've always got, you've got Mother Nature to keep you company half the time. I did a lot of backpacking. Or you're at places where other people are traveling and having fun, and they tend to be. I haven't had a drink. Maybe that's why I can't speak. They don't know. I have a cold actually. But they don't tend to be open to. People backpacking and having fun tend to be open to you know, meeting new people. But if you're doing a 9-to-5, you got to deal with other people doing a 9-to-5, and everyone's tired when they go home, right? Of course, there are other foreigners here you can make friends with, so that's always there. But if you're out in the boonies, that may not be the case. So it really depends on your situation. And then, you know, there's pluses and minuses from living in a big city. In a big city, you'll meet a lot of foreigners like yourself, and you'll have a lot of friends. But in a small city, you can learn Japanese more. But of course, there are less people to hang out with and become friends with. So, you know, a lot of pluses and minuses. But at the end of the day, all I've got to say about Ryan Boundless's claims are, look at his situation. He's been here for over 10 years. He is not the friendliest guy. Okay, he is not the most. I will say this quite confidently. He's not the most socially flexible person, let's say skilled person. And if he can do it, then, ladies and gentlemen, take that as a sign that you can probably do it as well. No offense to you, Ryan, but come on, you're not exactly Mr. Fun and Game, Mr. Party Animal, right? So, if you're doing fine here, I'm sure other people can adjust to the hardships of living in Japan. Of course, it isn't for anyone. He is right. And at the end of the day, I will admit that it's better that if you don't come, because it's better for people like Ryan and myself, who make a living teaching English, and the less competition there is, the more we can charge for private lessons, right? Okay, that's about it. I'm gonna go now, but thanks for watching, guys. Oh, subway's this way. Okay. See you guys later. Welcome to the second part of my video, brought to you by Knob Creek, who pays me nothing, but does, this is my first shot. I'll be sipping this throughout the video. This is a bit of a laundry video. If you don't know what a laundry video is, it's a video that you don't really have to listen to. I mean, I always say that. I say that. If only Freudian slips were actually accurate. If you don't have to watch, I have a horrible cold. I'm just getting over. It's raining here in Japan. It's a horrible country, Japan. It rains. Can you believe that? How inconsiderate. This is a little medicine before I go to sleep. I do have an early day tomorrow because I'm forced to work because they forced me to take their money. Anyway, the second part of my video is an actual response to Barry versus Japan, which is really the only video I'm interested in. I hate to kick the dead horse in the teeth again and again, but I don't really find anything that Ryan Boundless says to be relevant anymore. All he does is kick the same dead horse in the mouth again and again. Like I said before, he's kind of a one-trick pony, and he's just trolling, I think, or something's really wrong with him. I don't know, because he's proof that everything he says is wrong, because he's still here, and he's been here for 10 years. So there you go. Anyway, let's get to it. So Barry versus Japan, the link is in the description. That's actually his channel name, Barry vs Japan. And the first thing I want to say is Barry's story is true. It is so true. It's completely true. And I will not deny anything he says. And it would be arrogant of me to do otherwise.
Feel free to make a rebuttal video. I'm sure somebody is going to make some video telling me how I'm a terrible gaijin and how I didn't give it a chance and how you have to be there at least 5 years to truly understand it and all this nonsense, go ahead.
But I'd like to give you a little perspective on this, and I'm not doing this as someone who claims to be better than Barry in any way. Just a different opinion, and you can take it for what it's worth. But first, a little sip, a little kanpai. Now, Barry came to Japan in June, and he is now in China teaching English. He did not like Japan. And if you haven't watched the video, go through it. It's 37 minutes, 10 seconds long, but it's a good watch. And I'm going to go through his video. And if you didn't watch it, I've made some notes here. I'm going to break it down. Okay. First of all, he admits he's angry. He admits he's angry. Excuse my cold. And now he's in China, and good for him. So I'm glad he's happy. He seems to be quite happy now. Good for him. And I'll tell you something that a lot of people make this are under the misconception, or that I'm a Japanophile. I guess someone might call me a weeaboo. I'm not. This in the background is for your sake, just to make the background a little bit more interesting. I couldn't help putting junk I like in there too, like The Simpsons and Avengers, which are not Japanese. But there are some things in Japan that I do like very much, like my Tengu mask, which I just love this. Look at this huge wooden mask. Isn't that amazing? It's so big, right? I know it's phallic. I know what you're thinking, but I don't know. As far as I know, he's a virgin. Anyway. There's a few things in Japan that I do like, of course. But I didn't come to Japan with any expectations, really, except one, which is Japanese is a difficult language. That's really the only thing I was thinking about, because that's the reason I came to Japan, was to learn Japanese. We're going to go through his posts, okay, in chronological order. So he says before he came to Japan, he was aware of many of the negative things, and he just ignored those posts and videos that he had seen. He just ignored them. And now he wishes he hadn't. And he's doing this in hopes that someone will not ignore his video about all the negative things. Now, well, one big difference between Barry and myself, Barry, that is an unfortunate name, though, he's bitter. He's wanted to live in Japan since he was 10 years old. And that's something I never watched anime. The only thing I ever thought about Japan was, damn, Japanese people are hard workers. And I respected that. I'm one of those people who respect the work ethic, even though I see people around me who succeed without seeming to have it. Quite frustrating sometimes, I gotta tell you. So he had different expectations, right? He thought, I'm going to come to Japan. And I don't know what he had, but since he is 10 years old, Jesus, I think I started thinking maybe a year or maybe 2 at most before I started coming over. No, you know what it was? It was when I met Naoki in Bolivia. I met this Japanese guy in a cave, yes, in an abandoned silver mine in Potosi, Bolivia. Look it up, Potosi. And I was traveling alone, he was traveling alone. We made friends, we became friends. And he came to stay with me in New York, and he said, yeah, come visit Japan sometime. And I looked into it, and I thought, I speak Spanish already. I got to switch gears. Ya hablo español, y por esa razón yo pensé que quería aprender un idioma más difícil que de Japón, de español. Y ese idioma es, por supuesto, japonés. Man, it's hard to switch gears. Man, that sounded terrible. But I speak Spanish already, so I wanted to learn a more difficult language. And I wanted to, you know what it was? I wanted to see if I actually enjoyed teaching, because my original plan was to come to Japan, teach for a year, see if I could learn Japanese, because I heard it's difficult, and to see if I enjoyed teaching. And if I did, I would come back and get my PhD in English literature and become an arrogant English professor, so I could bang co-eds. Just kidding about that. I don't know, that parallel future, maybe, I don't know. That wasn't actually my intention. But anyway, I'm just joking. Okay, so let's go on with this. I have a head cold. I blame the cold. So this is his experience. Yes, this is his experience. And he actually calls out the company, which is great. The company he calls out is called Winby or something. And I looked them up. They've got 55 schools all over Japan, mostly the east side. I hope I don't have like a booger hanging on my nose from sneezing all day. But so they're a fairly successful school, which tells you something. Because you can't completely suck if you're treating everyone badly. I think we have to agree that way. Can you? I don't know. What, does Walmart treat everybody badly? People work there. There must be something to it, right? Well, he does seem to think that it's because people are lining up to take jobs like his. They don't care. People are, I guess these weeaboos that they claim, that they talk about, they're just lining up to take those jobs, so they don't care. His first gripe is that he had, it's been raining today, so my hair is going crazy. The first gripe he has is that they made him work for 1 week unpaid, which does suck. But not that uncommon. And often they give you like not exactly full pay, but they give you something. Now, he didn't get anything, but I know a guy who worked for Brains who claims that they paid, and I believe him, but I have to say claims just in case they sue me, who worked for a month with no pay. I think they paid for his food. I think that was it. They paid for his food, and I think they gave him free living, free apartment. He didn't really say about that. He didn't talk about that, but they made him pay for his transportation, which really sucks because it was like 2,600 yen a day. So I'm really surprised that they did that. And if that's true, which I have no reason to believe it's not true, that really sucks. And the guy on the first day, they gave him a speech. Oh, my cold. And they said, this can be, if you make this work, this can be a great experience, or if not, it'll be the worst year of your life. I don't think there's anything wrong with that sentence about anything. I mean, isn't that life? If you work at it, if you try, life can be great or it can suck. He seemed to be disappointed that he didn't get a more inspiring speech, but that's fine. Let me see. They made him pay for his transportation, bad. Unpaid training, bad. But not unheard of again. Let's see. I'm correcting my notes. I made a typo. Like, why am I correcting notes? No one's going to see these notes. He arrived in June. His first paycheck was July 25th. I think that's pretty good. It's typical. And I've mentioned that before. And if he said he did his research. You should expect that. Now, I came 25 years ago with about, I think I said $2,000. I don't even remember, but it was barely enough to survive to my first paycheck. But I did. He recommends $5,000. The more, the better. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, not really a criticism. Bring a lot of money. I hired an idiot, actually a great teacher, but I say idiot for one reason. I hired a teacher who came to Japan and got married like the week before he came. Didn't tell me. He arrived here. We picked him up at the airport with his new wife. Had $300 in his pocket. I ended up having to lend him $3,000 so he could afford the rikikin, shikikin, all the key money, the deposits for his apartment. If you don't know what I'm talking about, in Japan, there are various payments you have to make to get into an apartment. Now, Barry says that he didn't have any of those payments. However, he did say he had to pay 30,000 yen for water, heat, and electricity deposit, which I've never heard of those deposits happening. So there's something that happens sometimes that I've noticed. Some small, and this is a great idea if you're a company owner. And I've actually thought of it myself, but I haven't done it. Is the company rents the apartment and then like sublets to the teacher, and thus kind of controls the atmosphere and everything, and makes it easier for the teacher to get in. I wouldn't say I would do this to control the teacher so much, but actually to make it easier to get a teacher into Japan and to make it more attractive to work for me, right? If I say you work for me, I'll supply the apartment. I think that'd be pretty good, right? People would be more eager to work for me. I don't know about this. He claims he had to pay 30,000 yen for water, heat, and electric, and he complains about that. But if you didn't have to pay any of the other stuff, I think that's pretty lucky. That's all you had to pay, $300 to get started. That's great, And maybe he paid his first month rent, which he didn't mention. But he did mention that his payment was $250,000 a month, and his take home after everything was $150,000. And he said I'm assuming he paid for his rent and insurance, which at the first year must have been minimal. He was only here 3 months. So I don't know what he was doing with the 100,000 yen. Must have been an expensive apartment. He didn't really say. So let's not criticize him on that point at all. What really does suck about his situation, and he mentions that the ideal class teaching environment is 20 hours of teaching time a week, and I would say that's a great deal if you find that. He says ideal. But, you know, your first year out, I don't think you should be looking for ideal. I think you're lucky if you hit 25, maybe 27. He had 33. Back in the day when I first came over, like big schools like EON, ECC, they were offering 22 hours, 20 to 22. 25 was considered so-so. Nowadays, though, let me explain something else that has changed. Back in the day, right, and I don't mean this, I don't say this as a reason to brag. I'm not saying that this means anything. I'm just telling you how things change and why things are the way they are. So back in the way the government kind of protected teachers a little bit by insisting or making it, I guess, a rule that all schools pay a minimum of 250,000 yen per month per teacher. To each teacher. Each teacher gets that. That's a salary. Minimum salary, 250,000 yen a month. I'm not communicating very well for an English teacher right now, am I? And I've only had a third of this whiskey. But a couple of years ago, they eased up on that regulation, and now they can pretty much pay whatever they want. So it's more of a competitive rate. So schools will pay less if they can get away with it, which means it's up to the teacher to accept it or not, right? I know quite a few schools that offer 220, 230, 240. I can't remember that school's name, but there's a huge school chain. And I know a guy here on YouTube who's also a YouTuber. I won't mention him, but he's been here for a year, getting 240, I think, 230, 240, and now he's going up to 250 after a year. So there you go. Maybe 2 years, most schools offer, you know, small hikes, etc. But anyway, 33 classes a week is tough. And the other thing you have to remember, but here's the thing that all kind of offsets this, or here's the thing, in the beginning, that really this is especially horrible, because 33 classes a week, I could do pretty much blindfolded right now without any preparation at all, because I've been doing this so long. I can walk into a classroom blindfolded with all my fingers cut off and still teach. You know, because I've been doing it for so long, I can do it blindfolded now, pretty much. It's easy, is what I'm saying. But for someone but I remember back when I first started, I was literally preparing twice as much per day for every class that I had. So, for example, if I had a 1 hour class, I would prepare like 2 hours because I was just so nervous to do a good job. I was so, I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning, right? And I had no training. Now, I'm gonna interrupt myself to mention something that he seems to put a lot of stock into, and that's something called the TEFL or TESL. I forgot which one it was. There were the two of them. I forgot which one, but whatever one he claims. Where the hell is it? Well, I didn't write this down, but I think it was TEFL. But he seems to put a lot of stock into that. Oh yeah, and he says if you're a trained teacher, then you're going to be really disappointed in Japan because you're basically a glamorized, something like that, a babysitter. If you're teaching kids, sure, but there are a lot of jobs out there where you don't teach kids, right? I never really, I think I taught kids. Oh no, the first year I did teach a few kids, but it was like 1 or 2 classes. 1/4 or 1/5 of my classes were kids. So very few. There are some schools that's all they do though. So it really depends on the school. My school, we don't teach any kids almost right now. Do we have any kids right now? No, but I help out. I got a friend who I help out with some of his classes sometimes, and he teaches kids, and I go over there and help him out when he's looking for a teacher. Of course, he pays me, but yeah, we don't want to talk about that too much. But it's more of like a favor because I take a really cheap rate to do it. Anyway, if you're watching, just know that I'm doing this as a favor. So, but he knows that. Anyway, he says, let me see, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the TEFL thing. So I looked it up. Now I don't have one. I talked to Mully, Warmoth Strat, and he doesn't have one either. And I think most of the teachers I know here in Japan who already work here don't have one. I think that's like kind of a bullshit thing that came later. I don't really know what you get for your money, for that. But I do know it takes 110 to 150 hours to studying time. They say, well, if you look on the website, it takes 110 to 150 hours to get one of those things. Which is, it depends. It could be 10 days if you study 10 hours a day. It could be 6 months if you go real slow, if like an hour a day. But it's not that impressive. That's what I'm saying. Like if you think that makes you a teacher, and he bragged about Cambodia having higher standards than Japan. In Cambodia, you don't even need Bachelor of Arts, but you do need a TEFL apparently. So, you know, I don't know which one's more valuable. Something that took you 4 years to get, like a Bachelor of Arts, or a TEFL, which took you maybe 6 months if you went real slow. You know, I kind of call bullshit on that claim, but and that doesn't really have much to do with his experience in Japan. So, except that he seems to think that he deserved more respect because of it. But I would say actually you kind of got suckered into buying something you didn't need, because you don't need those things in Japan anyway. So anyway, people always ask me, do I need one? I wouldn't hire you if you had one, especially. But I would say, for me, when I interview teachers, I look at their resumes, and if they don't have experience, I'm of course it counts against them. But I'm not. But the most important thing for me is to give them trial lessons with live students and have the students rate them. That's pretty much it. Yeah. If they're good teachers, and I'll have them do one. Well, first of course they get an interview. Then I'll have them do one trial lesson. And I had a few teachers, and then I have them do one more. And then we pick. The students actually pick basically in the end, right? I got pretty strict students. So anyway, so here's where it gets all weird. Something that's really bad for his situation is he talks about how. Yeah, he had 33 hours of 33 classes a week, 50-minute classes, which really does suck. And in the beginning, that really sucks, but you would have gotten better at that, and you would have learned how to replicate your classes and be able to use the same kind of material in different classes, so you're not really preparing that much. And actually, in the past where I'll teach many different groups the same exact class. I actually get better and better as I teach that same class, and I get more comfortable with the material because I usually made the material myself too, which you usually don't have. You don't have that choice in these schools like this. You usually have to teach using their material, which also kind of sucks. But if you know their material, and one thing, a little advice for you those people who are teaching, love your material, even if you don't learn to love it or pretend to love it in front of the students, because if the students find out that you really hate the material and you have to teach it, then your life's going to suck. So try to get into it, even if you're kind of faking it, like a fake orgasm or something. I don't know. Tough for guys, I know, but can be done. Okay, so he talks about the school that he worked for, and he says that 3 to 4 teachers quit in the last, I don't know how long it was, a year or so. That's a good sign. That's a good thing to find out. It's not a good sign. It's a terrible sign, but it's a good thing to find out. The aforementioned school, which I won't mention again, for legal purposes, apparently had like 8 teachers and Japanese staff as well quit within a year. Tons, like most of their staff quit. So if you hear things like that, start looking for a job immediately. Now, another thing about this job that he could have done, which he didn't do, was to hold on to it and look for another job immediately. Realize what it is, which is because I'm assuming they got him his visa. Get the visa, screw the school. If they're screwing you, don't feel bad. Screw the school, find another school. But he could have done that. But what he did was he just took off. He just left the country. I don't understand why. This is the other thing I don't really get about this experience. I admit that what happened to him is completely terrible, but I don't understand why he can't see that this was just his experience and why he didn't consider the fact that other people are having a good time. What's wrong? And he even admits that there are still people at his school who work there and they seem to be happy. So that makes me question, his thinking process is like, shouldn't you be wondering why other people are doing well? And how are they succeeding? What is it that you can't seem to, do successfully? I don't want to be negative about this, but when someone else is doing something, then you can do it too. And if someone else is being successful, then you got to ask yourself, how are they doing it? What's making them capable of being successful? And what prevents you from being successful? Figure that out. I don't think he tried. Well, maybe he did, but he doesn't mention it in the video. He quite possibly did. It just didn't work out for some reason. Now, one reason is because he claims, and this is the part I don't really believe, but he went out with his coworkers. None of them drank, but they forced him to drink. Now, this is kind of true. When you first come to Japan, they have a tendency to keep serving you. It's politeness. It's part of the culture. When your beer is empty, they say, "Oh, here, have another. Have some more. Have some more." And they're trying to make you feel good, and they're trying to be polite, and they're trying to be, welcoming. He claims that this was a sting operation to get him drunk so he would spill the truth about his feelings about the company, which just sounds too malicious for humans. And I don't believe for a couple reasons. Here's the other thing you have to remember about English schools. They're not like highly sought after jobs by Japanese. They don't pay that well. They often get paid less than the teachers. Okay, they're often resentful of the teachers for that reason. Nobody really aspires to work for an English school unless they're really interested in language and they want to teach English themselves there. It's not like a great job to have, and you often see the turnover is pretty high. So it seems doubtful that they would conspire, against him. Oh, let's get him drunk so we can get him fired. Why would you want to get someone fired? It wasn't like he was a big troublemaker, right? He'd only been there a short time. But he seemed to think he was a sting operation. They got him drunk on purpose so he would badmouth the company, and then they could report back to the bosses and get him in trouble or something. But yeah, other things that he does claim. So anyway, I kind of doubt that. I kind of think it's paranoia. But like Mully said, there are three sides to every story: your side, his side, and the truth, I guess. So who knows what happened there. The one thing I will admit is that they do tend to think that you know shit you don't know. And I'll tell you a funny story. When I came to Japan, in the old days, you had to leave the country. I came over on a tourist visa. I found my job. Then I had to go to Korea, get my visa exchanged. So I had to spend a couple days in Korea. And I went to the embassy, Japanese embassy, with my paperwork, handed it in. I had to wait till the next business day. What you usually do is you go there on a Friday, hand in your paperwork, have fun all weekend. That's the typical way to do it. Get your paperwork on Monday, fly back to Japan, and go to work. These days you could just change it here, but when back in the day, when if you left the country, you had to get an exit stamp. And my friend got married in India, so I went to the wedding. And when I went to the airport, the guy's like, "Where's your exit stamp?" And I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." So he's like, "Well, you can't. I got to take away your visa." And I'm like, "Well, I got to go to the wedding. I'm already here. I already got the plane ticket paid for. I'm not gonna, I'm meeting my ex-girlfriend, so I'm not gonna stop." Because of some visa thing. So I said, fuck it. So I went to India, had a great time. Wow, that was an amazing wedding. But anyway, elephants and transvestites and horses. If you've never been to an Indian wedding, a real Indian wedding, you haven't lived. Amazing. So, came back to Japan, had to do the whole process over again. But my boss is like, "Why didn't you know about the exit stamp?" And I'm like, "How am I supposed to know about the exit stamp? You never told me." He's like, "Well, I just thought you knew." How would I know? How would I know that? I mean, and he's like, "Well, everybody knows." So in Barry's situation, he said his company was pissed off because he didn't know about the time card. And he's like, "Well, nobody told me." And they couldn't believe it. But yeah, things like that happen. People, assume that you know shit you don't know. And it's crazy. Like, they just can't believe that you wouldn't know that. So the other thing that I will call bullshit on. No, but I agree with Barry, is that they told him that people cry at work all the time. So his coworkers cried, and he told the management that my coworkers are crying. And they're like, "Oh, people cry all the time." So I asked my wife about this. She's like, "No, that's not true at all." And I didn't think so either, because I've worked in companies. I've worked in many companies in Japan. And yeah, occasionally people cried, but it was rare. It wasn't normal. And it was usually some good reason, like, let me see, what's the last time someone cried? Of course, anyone who works with me cries. It's usually happiness. Someone leaves, someone cries. I can't really think of any coworker crying. No. I did hear about one of my students who told me about her coworker crying, but she hated that coworker and she wanted her to quit. That's a bullying case. But apparently this coworker, anyway, that's a different story. But I would say, yeah, we have to agree. I agree with Barry. It's not normal for you to cry in a workplace in Japan. Okay. The other thing he talked about was he just didn't have a great time in Japan. I would think part of this is due to the fact that he's been looking forward to moving here since he was 10 years old. And I would say to you, if you're watching this, if you are like that, if you're someone who's been looking forward to living in this country since you're 10, then maybe you really need to go back and look at your expectations, because a 10-year-old has very different expectations, or should have very different expectations than that of an adult or even a 22-year-old, which is the age most people come over. That's the age I was when I came over. People are, minimum 22 years older. So yeah, if you've been wanting to go to Japan for 12 years, your expectations are probably a little bit different. But anyway, he did say the scenery, the service was good, scenery is good, baseball is good, which I agree. All those things are fine. I'm not a big baseball fan, but baseball games are pretty fun to go to. I like going to live events. They're always pretty fun. Except rock and roll concerts, which everyone just sits in their seats. Those suck. Those are so depressing, and expensive. Now, the one thing he says that I disagree with is he says it's more expensive to live in Japan. Well, I don't know where he lived in America. He'd made one reference to Alabama, but he doesn't seem to have that Alabama accent. I don't know. I don't think he grew up in Alabama or nothing like that. But, seriously, I would have to disagree with that because even in Nagoya, in Tokyo, you can find a decent place to live. Of course, depending on the city, but I think $700 you can find your own place in most any city in Japan. $700 on the high end, and on the low end, of course. Well, hell, even in Nagoya, you can find places with shared baths for $200 or less. I will give you a secret, some information that some of you will be surprised I will share with you. My situation, I own a house, I have a car, I have a baby, I have a wife who does not work. I give my wife 300,000 yen a month. Minimum every month. But that's the minimum, okay? But that's enough, usually. Now, of course, there are things that happen occasionally. Like when she was in the hospital for 17 days and I had to give her 500,000 extra on top of that because of the hospital bills, which actually were much more, but insurance paid quite a bit. Or when we have to pay for something. Of course, when we bought the car, that was an extra $1 million that we had to pay. $10,000, which we pay cash, right? So there are those things. So I guess the average is much higher. But but for covering your basic insurance and mortgage or buying a house, all that stuff, we do okay with $3,000, which is not a lot. Of course, that said, I'm also putting away some money too for the kid, for example, for the future. But he says he couldn't cut it on $250,000 a month. He says that he only had $150,000 left at the end. But I think that's a lot. I think $150,000, $1,500. And I don't know what he was doing with that money, but it seems like you could have quite a bit of fun and enjoy your life with that much money. That would be about $1,200 a month. And let's say for your food, let's say half for your food. There's still quite a bit left over. So I don't know what was going on with that, but I would say you can usually. And he said he was in the country in some rural area. I don't know if he said exactly where he was. I think he didn't, but anyway. Long story short, Barry quit. And what did he say? Oh yeah, and the other complaints he said about Japan, and I'll admit some of these. I'll concur. I do concur. Suddenly I'm remembering that Charlie Sheen got AIDS. Wow, that kind of sucks for him. I guess everyone feels bad for him now. I once met Charlie Sheen when I was 18 years old, and he was about 20. In New York City, walking down the street. He was arrogant. He had sunglasses and cool walking down the street. Anyway, too bad for Charlie Sheen. Just popped in my head. Gotta say. One thing I have to concur about is that you cannot, it's getting a credit card here is really, really tough. And if you don't have a credit card here, it's really difficult to buy things online. I had a credit card from the USA. So I bought things on Amazon.com. And I think either way, I bought things. And I had an American Express. So you can get those things in the States and bring them over and they work. So, but it's better if you have a Japanese one sometimes, depending on what you're buying. Japanese seem to be more comfortable with those. But the other ones do work. My parents were just here for 3 weeks. They don't have Japanese credit cards. They pay for everything with a credit card. So my sisters and brothers, all the same thing. So it's not, if you have a credit card, you're fine. But if you don't have anything, then living here without a credit card is kind of tough or kind of free. If you're one of those people who like to live off the grid, it's not hell. But you can't buy things online. Well, Yeah, I guess not if you don't have anything, but get one. It's not that bad. Let me see. I suppose there's probably a way if you go to the bank or something. But anyway, again, that is a bit of an inconvenience. But again, you could take care of it before you get here by getting a credit card in your country. ATMs close at 9 p.m. That kind of stuff is changing. They used to be closed earlier. They used to be closed all weekend. They're slowly opening later. And there are 24-hour ATMs now at convenience stores all over Nagoya. Pretty sure they're 24 hours. Pretty sure. Not exactly sure. Maybe they're until midnight, but they're open pretty late. And something that just happened, I just saw a sign last week. This is one thing that a lot of foreigners complain about is Japan tries to treat you like children, and they control when you can go to the bank and when you can take out money and how late you can stay out. For example, the subways don't run all night, right? Everyone complains about that, but the subway is starting to run all night, or starting to run an hour and a half later, I think, in Nagoya. So they're extending the hours, which is good. So maybe that, they're starting. Maybe if people are interested, that'll go on and on. Nagoya, by the way, subways are the most expensive in the world, I've been told. So we'll have to get Guinness to verify that. But other things he says he wasn't interested in is that he said Japan is boring. If Tokyo is boring, I don't know, man. Tokyo's for me just one of the most exciting, fun cities ever. So I don't see how you can say. I think this is more of a justification of leaving Japan. Akihabara is boring. There's no live music. There's tons of live music here. There's comedy clubs. There's nightclubs. There's weird clubs. There are not many things to do. He says Tokyo Disneyland is boring. Or fun once, but it's too expensive. Well, actually, I've never been there because I have no interest in Tokyo Disneyland. But my wife does. I have to take her someday. I'll wait till the kid is big enough. So, and he does say they're xenophobic as hell, which I would say is fair. A fair claim. But at the same time, how much of he said he tried to learn the language, but how much can you learn in 3 months that you could really make any headway? To be judgmental after 3 months? I don't know. Did you really speak enough to actually communicate with anyone? Does anyone really want to put up with your non-communicative ass? My first year, and this is completely true, I spent many, many hours alone at night studying in front of a dictionary. I think I might. Do I have a dictionary here? No, it's the other school. But I spent many hours alone studying by myself. And then going out on the weekend, of course. I did have a girlfriend. It wasn't a complete dweeb, but I spent a lot of time studying Japanese. And that really improved my life when I got that under my belt and I could go out and meet people. And then I could decide if they were xenophobic. But it's hard. I don't think you can really decide if you can't even speak their language. And the other thing that Molly mentioned, which was interesting, that I forgot to mention, is that speaking of language, right? You really, if you come to Japan, really try to get some of the language under your belt, the basic stuff, the grammar. The grammar is super important. You can build on the grammar. Vocabulary is just extra tools, or extra ammunition for things for you to put in your mouth. But Mully says that he talks about these conversations he had with his staff, but then at the same time says that the English was terrible. So the question is, how much communication was really being accomplished there? How can they suck? How can his coworkers suck at the language, but then still communicate all this stuff? So and part of that, I would say, is also, unfortunately, part of that is the fact that you couldn't speak Japanese, which I don't blame you. Of course, you were only here 3 months, but that's a shitty situation, where they can't speak English well and you can't speak Japanese well. So, but that would be something that anyone coming over could improve on before they came over. But again, you're going to be surprised at my ending here. The other thing he said was, he said he admitted it was probably better in Tokyo and Osaka, but he was in the country. So it's kind of hard to accept this video because he's like, don't come to Japan to teach, but he admits that, a lot of things sucked in his situation. So here's something though I will agree with. He says other gaijin are elitist pricks. And it's true. We are. I would say I'm one of the exception because I remember when I first came over, no one would talk to me. All the people had been here longer. It was like a war. It's like the army. It's like, we're not going to waste our time getting to know you because you might be dead next week, like in Vietnam or something. Like they never talk to the new guy until he's been around for a while. I would say it's really true. Like I knew this guy who worked at a bar for 20 years. I'd only been here for 5 years. He would barely give me the time of day until I started banging one of his waitresses, and then he realized I was cool. But anyway, that was really uncouth. I do apologize for that. But that was a long time ago. But and we were good friends, all of us. But it wasn't just that. Anyway, but yeah, there is that elitist, what do you call it? Elitistness? Is that a word? There is that environment here, and it's depressing, and it's really negative. And I've never attempted to be part of that. I talk to everybody. I spent over a year and a half backpacking in South America, where I talked to everybody, made friends with everybody. So I have no problem with that. I don't think I'm better than the other people, except, you know what? The only people I have a problem with is people who think that they know shit. Here's what you have to know. You don't know shit. Okay, that's all you have to know. Okay, I've been here a long time. I don't know shit. Okay, there's so much I don't know. It's amazing. But people who've been here a year or two and they think they know everything, those people just annoy the fuck out of everybody who knows better. So if you're one of those people, then maybe we do seem like elitist shit because we're not under the impression that we know everything, because we don't. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, those people do exist. I will give you that. The other thing is, you were only here for 3 months. How many people did you actually get to meet? But he did make some really fun. You should watch the video. It's a good video. He says it was almost like a contest. Who can embrace the suck the most? I don't know. It was mostly who was most successful. I mean, I know other foreigners here who have the cushiest jobs in the world. They work at some work at universities, and they get a university apartment that they don't have to pay for. It's just amazing. There is a sucky to almost every person's situation. However, people who are married to horrible women, or they hate their family life. There are a lot of miserable people here, but aren't they everywhere, right? I mean, how many people do you really know who love their job in the States, right? My father, who has a fairly complicated job, once told me, a fairly high-level job. He once told me, he said, when I first got this job, for years I was so happy. I thought I was so proud of my job. But, after 40 years of doing the same job, even after 20, even after 15, you get to do a job so well, it's pretty boring. You're just so good at it that there's hardly anything new. And there's nothing challenging about it anymore. So, but that exists everywhere in the world. So I don't think that's really Japan's fault. It's not specific to Japan. So he didn't have friends. He didn't like the job. He had no connections with his coworkers. He had a shitty situation. So my advice would have been, had he reached out to me, and who knows, maybe he did, but probably not, would be hold on to the job and start job hunting immediately and get out of that situation. I don't understand the end of his video. He says he had to leave, so he left so quickly that he didn't stick around to wait for his last paycheck. So he actually left like $500. Just said, screw it, I don't want it. It just took off. It'll be in the bank account, but it seems like he could have, gotten someone to send it to him. I don't know. Or gone to the bank. I don't know what you would do in that situation. But why did he have to go so far? Well, maybe he had a job waiting for him in Cambodia. But I looked up the Cambodia. Oh, not Cambodia. Where did he go? China. You don't have that much money waiting for you in China. But he said it was heartbreaking, and I do feel bad about that. And I know I've said a lot of negative shit in this video, but I will end this with something he will like very much. He's right. If I had it to do over, I would not come to Japan. But for one reason, I would say Japan is just too easy. And you might think that's against everything he says, but I think Japan is an easy place to live. It's friendly. Everyone's so helpful. It's not that expensive, look, this is bottled water. I love this stuff, right? This is 100 yen. I'm always drinking this stuff. There are places where you can buy things. Things are just so cheap in general. The 100 yen stores, maybe didn't have a 100 yen store. Maybe that's what you didn't have. It's an easy place to live. And in a way, it isn't that interesting. But I wouldn't say it's boring. I think there's a lot to do here. But if I were 22 years old, I would go to China right now, only because China is taking over the world. And it would be a great place to... I don't know how much you can get done in China. And I have a very strong suspicion that they are equally xenophobic, if not much more xenophobic, than Japanese are. But I also have this perception of they're kind of loud and annoying, just like Americans and foreigners are. So I think you'd probably be okay in China. And, you know, there's probably a lot to learn there. And it's a lot. How do I explain this? Okay, I've been in China, okay? It's exciting. It changes so quickly. You're walking down the street and there's women. There are people still shitting in the street. There's people still brushing their teeth in the street, in the gutter. It's one part of the city is so old-fashioned. It's just ancient. And then you take 2 blocks and it's like Tomorrowland. That's what I want to say. I don't know if Tomorrowland actually, I don't know what that movie, I never saw the movie, but it's like a futuristic dystopia. No, it's a futuristic world. It's amazing, the differences. So if I had it to do over, I would say, yeah, don't come to Japan. But I wouldn't say it's because it's awful. I would say it's a little bit because it's easy. It's not that much of a challenge. If I had it to do over, I would probably go to China. It's probably more of a challenge. You know, if you're young and you really want to see something new and very different from your world, wherever your, you know, civilized country you're from, I would go to China because my perception from, I've spent 3 weeks or so in China, I traveled around, is that place is it's extremely different. God, I can't communicate. It's very different from anything I've seen before. And I've been all around the world. I've been in 23 countries, but China is just a whole different world. And you could live there and you can work there. So I would say, yeah, go there. It's more exciting. Japan is safe. Very polite, very easy to live in. There are a few inconveniences, but in general, I think here's the thing. When you go to China and shit doesn't work, you're not going to be surprised. All right? You're not going to be surprised. And I don't think people have any perception of what things are going to be like in China. So I don't think you're going to be disappointed, right? And you're going to find people who want to talk to you. And like and this guy who, I don't know what kind of social genius he is or not, but he seems to be happy in China. So good for him, good for Barry. I don't know if you can watch this video because I think they have YouTube blocked there, and this is going to be a long ass video just like yours. So, and I don't know if you ever watch this video, but I'm glad you're happy. I mean, that's good. And I would say in the end, you probably made a good choice. You know, in the end, this negative experience hopefully turned into something good for you. So congratulations. That's pretty much all I have to say. Japan, you know, I will say one last. I will add one final note. Yeah, don't come to Japan because the fewer foreigners that are here, the more my value continues to increase, or at least stays the same. And there's a need for people like me. But to be honest, I got my fingers in so many pies right now that you could come here and it'd be okay. You could take my job. Okay. Anyway, I will also explain one other thing. I didn't want to do any video response to anything that Ryan Boundless had any connection with because, like I said before, I don't really find much value in his videos anymore. But 4 people did bother me about this, and they're very loyal subscribers, so I did it for them. You in Australia, what's his name? Atomic Boy? Atomic Boy? No, what's his boy? Atom Boy? God, I forgot his name. I think it's Matt is your real name, right? Anyway, you and God, now that I'm on the spot, I can't remember their names, but these are actually people that I've met. Some of them in real life. And what's the other guy's name? A couple of you have emailed me and really been pushing me to make a video of this. Like some guy just kept insisting I make a video of this. So anyway, I did the video. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up or whatever, or not. I don't care. Or give me something. Give me a thumbs down. That's fine. I don't give a shit. You know, seriously. But show me you interacted. You watched to the end, and if you watch to the end, tell me. Do this for me. Grab a drink and sit down with me because at this point we've been here together for so long. I have to edit this out and put it out by 2 a.m. Come by, guys. Thanks for watching. Come by. Tell me what you're drinking.